I'm April Spectrum. This video, by request, is about depression. Depression has a higher incidence among people with autism than it does among the general populace, and so that is part of how it intersects with my video series. The other part is that I have suffered with depression myself since about the time I was 8 years old. Before I launched into my own personal story, I wanted to share a few things that I wrote down so that I won't forget them, because this topic makes me extremely nervous. Depression is not being sad over something. That is being sad about something. So when your friend dies, you're not depressed, you're grieving. When you lose the sports game, you're not depressed, you're disappointed. And when your favorite mug at the office gets broken, you're not depressed, you are sad. Depression is an emotional imbalance that is caused by a chemical deficiency in the brain. And basically what happens is the three chemicals that make you happy, which is number 2, serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin, are not balanced the way they are supposed to be. Your brain, for whatever reason, has decided that the amount you need for one or more of those is less than the amount it takes to feel okay. And so you can experience a depressed or lowered emotional state consistently and chronically over time, or you can fail to experience the normal highs of life. So you go on a roller coaster, instead of being like, woohoo, you're like, oh, okay, that happened. Last thing I want to touch on before launching into my personal story, which could get long, is how to ask for help and how to offer help. Because I suspect that the majority of my viewers at this time are the autist in their life rather than someone who just happens to know one, the first part I'll hit is how to ask for help. I know it's scary, and I know that I know that a lot of us don't make a lot of money, and I know that we tend to lack that we tend to lack the social structure of support that many neurotypical people have. Who is the person whose name you put on the top of your suicide note? Talk to them. If you're on the other end of the equation, if you are the person who maybe knows someone who suffers with depression, there's some things that you probably do that you don't realize are actually making their life worse. And one of these things is the question that people ask. So you notice your friend is acting differently. They seem sad all the time. They're eating too much, or they're not eating at all. They've made a list of people they think should take care of their pets if they happen to randomly die. And so you are worried about them because they're your friend, and you say to them, "You're not suicidal, are you?" That's literally the worst thing you can say. Well, second worst. The worst thing would be, committing suicide sends you to hell. That is the worst thing you can say. What is helpful is to sit your friend down and be like, "Hey, look, I've started to be concerned about you. I've noticed some behaviors that I've learned are associated with depression and suicidal thoughts, and I want you to know that I care about you and you can always talk to me. Are you having suicidal thoughts?" And you have to ask them that, because we're tricky. See, we want to reassure you, and we've kind of given up on help once we get to that point. And so if you don't ask it directly, we will wiggle out of it and be like, "Oh yeah, it's, I'm on this new diet where I don't eat anything, and then when I'm going to pass out, I have a cube of cheese." That's a Devil Wears Prada quote, by the way. Or you ask it in a way that's sort of stigmatizing and scary, and so we just say no to shut you up and make you stop. But if you ask it directly and you don't sort of encourage the no, there's the chance that we'll open up. Another thing is, don't act freaked out or scared if they say yes. So, "Oh no, oh God, oh Jesus," all that's going to shut us up real fast. But if you say, "Okay, how can I help? Tell me what you need. You can talk to me. Let's let's work something out. let's make a plan. Can you stay alive for 24 hours? Something like that is going to be really helpful. And letting someone who is in a suicidal state or in a depressed state know you care makes a world of difference. I recommend always having the suicide hotline in your phone, even if you're not suicidal, because then if you happen to be the person that someone happens to talk to, you can call it for them, encourage them to call it, give them the number, and so on. So now the scary part. I'm going to tell you about my own experiences with depression in the hopes that some of these symptoms and things will help you understand better, or will help people to realize when someone else is in need of help. So my journey with depression started when I was very young. I was about 8 when the family doctor first used the word, but I think I was probably feeling it a lot sooner than that. I had a couple sort of traumatic events happen early on that masked it. My best friend moved away, and my favorite / only pet that was mine, private, and not shared between my siblings and I, died. And a lot of what made that traumatic was that even though I was only, I think, 7, I was the person who was charged with making the decision to put my pet to sleep, which should not have happened. And then afterwards, I was told that I was a murderer for having done so, which also should not have happened. So I went through a very natural grieving process, and that masked the issues that I was having with depression very, very well, to the point that I didn't get any help for it. When the doctor did suggest to my parents that they should seek counseling for me because I was possibly suffering with depression, they reacted with fear. They thought that it would change their social standing in the community if it was known that a crazy was in the family, and so instead of seeking help for me, they hid me. I was not allowed to have friends over at the house. I was only allowed to go to the house of our next door neighbor. I didn't get to have birthday parties after that until I was a teenager and my school friends threw them for me. I was even pulled out of school for behavior issues, which was really teachers being concerned about me and my parents being afraid of that. It also became a thing where if I was appearing to be sad, which, I have resting bitch face, I appear sad when I'm not actively smiling, I would be punished unless I could give them a reason for being sad. This was also true of if I was crying or actually sad, but even if I just failed to appear happy. Very unhealthy situation. And being a child, I didn't know better. I thought this was just one of the rules as you grow up. You know, just like when you're a little kid, peeing your pants isn't a big deal, but as you get older, peeing your pants is a big deal. Well, maybe when you're a little kid, crying's okay because you're a baby, and as you get older, it's not, because grown-ups aren't allowed. I first thought about dying when I was 8 or 9. I was taking laundry to the laundry room, and there was this thing me and my siblings did where we would drop off our laundry and then we'd run up the stairs as fast as we could so that the monsters wouldn't get us. And the monsters, of course, were the sound made by the wind whistling through the garage door. And I remember thinking maybe I should let it get me. And then I thought, I'm going to be in so much trouble with Mom if I die before I'm elderly, which is a weird thought. From that point on, I sort of changed. My daydreaming was no longer exclusively unicorns and astronauts. It became ways to die. Ways like walk out in front of traffic, run into a burning building to save a pet and never come out. Step in front of a bullet when a bad guy is robbing the bank. Some of them were more doable than others. Sometimes the plans got really elaborate, and sometimes they were really simple, like fall off the second-story porch and break my neck, fall out of a tree, fall off a cliff, drown while swimming, drink cleaning solvents. I actually drank bleach one time. It didn't work. So, as I got older, I stopped trying to make friends. I always struggled with making friends because that's what Asperger's does to you. It makes you socially awkward. And bagel. I also couldn't make friends because of my parents' weird rules regarding friendships and visiting. But now I didn't try because a friend would be just one more person disappointed by my inevitable death. And I stopped planning things too, like I didn't plan my Halloween costumes because I might be dead by Halloween. I didn't make Christmas lists because I'd probably be dead by Christmas. I didn't make birthday wish lists either because I was definitely going to be dead before then. It was bad enough that when I got my first job, I couldn't, like, I'd get anxiety if I accepted a work schedule more than 2 weeks in advance because I didn't know if I'd be alive to go to work. So, yeah, that happened. So I was pretty alone. I did make a few friends in middle school because I didn't want people to notice I was alone because they didn't have assigned seating for the lunch tables anymore. It was you sat with your friends. I didn't want to be alone and have people know it. In high school, we had a field trip. We went to, it's nerve-wracking, I want to say the name of the bridge, but I don't want people to connect me to where I was and know who I am in real life. We went to a bridge to study the rock formations under it, and while I was there, it occurred to me that that would be a really good place to commit suicide. It's actually one of the top suicide bridges in the world, and a little trivia for you, it isn't the fall that kills you, you drown because the current pulls you underwater and you can't get back up. So, when I was there and I realized, like, oh my god, this is my chance, I determined that I would walk to the middle of the bridge so as not to land on the rocks, because if I landed on the rocks, I would live. I didn't make it to the middle. I was really impatient, and I made it only about a third of the way before I tried to jump. I'll preface this, I was not sad that day. That day was actually a really good day. As we were carpooling up to the field trip, some girls asked me to ride with them rather than me having to beg someone. I got the joke. Some friends made a joke about Inspector Clouseau and Cato, and I got it. It was sunny and warm, and I didn't even need the jacket I brought, which was rare because here I am, it's the middle of summer and it's 100 degrees outside and I'm wearing a jacket inside because of air conditioning, but still. And it was just a nice day. It smelled good. I remember I could smell the ocean, and for once it didn't smell like dead things, it just smelled like how it's described in books, like fresh and sort of salty and cool. And I could smell tree sap because it was that time of year where the sap's coming out, and I could hear birds singing, and I could also hear the gulls doing their little cheepity sound, kind of like a kia, kia, you know. And it was just really, really beautiful. And the water was beautiful too. It was this really nice, really blue color, like not a watercolor. It was like, you know, like something that you, like that kind of blue-green crayon you used to color in someone's jeans in a coloring book. It was like that color. And so it was a really nice day and I didn't feel bad. But I realized that I wouldn't get another chance like that. And So I went for it, and I started climbing over the little fence barricade they have to prevent people from jumping, and my shoe got caught in their little fence barricade, and I was prevented from jumping. One of the girls I was there with, who is actually a very good friend of mine, and was then too, saw me, and she put her hand on my shoulder and was like, "Oh, hey, we're falling behind the group," and that was all she said about it, and I was like so grateful to her for keeping my secret, because being found out as suicidal was a fate worse than death, in my opinion. I thought I would be thrown in the loony bin, which is what my parents always threatened, which when I was old enough to realize it wasn't where the Looney Tunes left and went to when you turned off the TV, I learned about asylums like Nellie Bly, where they break your nose and crack an egg into you to force feed you when you're protesting, or prison, where you would get raped, because that's what everyone tells you about prison. And I was reasonably terrified. So I kept it a secret for a really long time, and I moved out of state, got a different job, and I ended up getting my poodle. I got her as my sort of, yay, I'm being a grown-up and being responsible prize, and also as like an FU to this job that I had quit at the time. I was working for this really, really evil company, and somebody there took my office fish and put him in the microwave and then put him back on my desk when he was dead. And so I quit that job, and as a prize for being brave enough to quit the job without something else lined up, I got myself a puppy. And that was about the same time I had my tooth removed, and the medication that they gave me for the pain reacted really badly with me. I took half of the dose I was supposed to, and it quadrupled the pain I was in and made me hallucinate for 6 hours. And it also made me really, really depressed and suicidal. I remember standing in my kitchen making myself tea, and I looked at the mug, and I thought, if I break this just right, it'll be sharp enough, and I can cut myself from my ear to my collarbone fast enough that no one will be able to stop me. And then I thought of my puppy. I said, well, I can't do that because I have this puppy and she needs me. So I'm actually not re-recording this bit due to crying, although that was embarrassing. I'm re-recording because there was a weird audio issue, which has happened before where it just randomly cuts out and I don't know what the deal is. But anyways, so after that moment, I realized I needed help. And I went to the website for Psychology Today magazine because I found it has some very helpful articles in it. And they have a thing where you find a psychologist in your area. So I used that, and there was one who had a background with autism and depression, so I gave him a call, and it rang about twice before I chickened out, ended the call, threw my phone across the room, and had a panic attack while holding my puppy, because clearly he would realize I was crazy and send me to the insane asylum, which, spoiler alert, did not happen. I've since learned that many therapists will give you a free sort of test the waters session where you get to learn if they're a good fit for you, which is really cool. And I knew pretty quickly that this was something I needed in my life, and I've been going since. So that has been really good. And I actually found a job in the mental health field where I work at a place that helps kids who have mental health issues. And it has been incredibly rewarding for me because the majority of what we do is we just give them a safe place to be while their medication gets balanced. And then we also teach coping skills. And one of the major coping skills we teach is how to recognize when they need help and ask for it, which I really wish I'd had as a kid. But it's been really good for me to be able to help kids who are basically just me when I was younger. I've worked with children who have depression, autism, schizophrenia, borderline personality disorder, sociopathy, epilepsy and Tourette's, and a whole slew of other issues. And it is a really good thing to see that stigma that is around mental health going away and people actually getting the help they need, and especially young people, because it makes so much difference in people's lives to get help early. So I want to encourage you, no matter what age you are, if you are the person who has a mental health need, or if you're someone who knows someone, offer help or seek help. Get the help you need. There are so many resources out there. Googling them will find them, but I will also try to include some links, especially the phone number to the suicide hotline will definitely be there, because it is really important. And I know it's scary, but if you just power through it and be brave and get the help you need, it will make a world of difference for you. So that has been my incredibly long video about depression. I am April Spectrum. Comment any questions or comments you have below. Subscribe, like this video, come back for more, and follow me on Twitter, where you can make video requests. This one was done by request. One of the other top winners in the poll was auditory processing disorder, so I may do that next. Anyways, see you next time.